Welcome to the Healing Meows audio story channel. I hope you're having a calm and peaceful day. Now, let's begin today's story. Someone had swapped my entire speech with a draft full of hollow cliches. Cheap trick. Really cheap. I stood on the stage, stumbling over meaningless lines, and I could feel the embarrassment crawling across the room. The audience laughed openly. How did someone like her even make it to senior director? Her husband's sitting right there, his face looks like burnt coal. Betty's filing for divorce the moment they get home. That's what they called it, reality check. If you don't have real ability, don't dream about standing at the top. I stood there gripping the stack of papers that had just been sabotaged. My ears ringing with mocking laughter echoing through the hall. I turned off my phone and casually tossed the draft aside. Pure nonsense. Trash. They genuinely believed my 10 years in this industry were built on reading pre-written scripts. I leaned into the microphone and smiled down at the whispering crowd. Well then, I said calmly. Let's skip the script. Today, let's change things up and review some unfinished business inside the company. Especially certain missing travel expenses over the past year, money that mysteriously disappeared after being transferred from the company account by a few people sitting right here. The laughter grew louder, mocking, sharp. In my hands were several A4 pages, not financial reports, but Peppa Pig dialogue scripts. A truly vicious joke. From the front row executive table, everything was clearly visible. Zhao Xingyue covered her mouth, laughing so hard her shoulders shook. Chen Kai, my husband, kept his head down, not daring to look up. He wasn't ashamed that I was being humiliated. He was ashamed that I dared to stand on that stage and drag him, vice president of sales, down into the mud. The projector screen behind me, which should have shown annual revenue charts, was now filled with corrupted symbols. Even the UI had been tampered with. So you wanted to finish me off? Fine. I'd send all of you back to zero. Because what you forgot was that I didn't just hold the microphone. I held the books. And the evidence. More than 300 people in the room. Over 600 eyes. Waiting to watch me make a fool of myself. Some had already raised their phones, ready to capture the moment for internal chat groups or short video platforms. Director Ning, why aren't you reading? The mocking voice belonged to Wang, head of administration, Zhao Xingyu's loyal lapdog. Are the words too hard? Want me to come up and read for you? Laughter erupted again. Chen Kai finally looked up, irritation written all over his face. He gestured for me to come down. Stop embarrassing everyone. If this were the old me, I would have panicked. Fumbled, red-eyed, rushed off stage and locked myself in a bathroom stall to cry. After all, I came from accounting, numbers, not speeches. Not like Zhao Xingyue, charming, smooth, adored by clients and executives alike. But today was different. Because I'd endured 3 months for this moment. I crumpled the Peppa Pig script in my hand and flicked my wrist. Straight into the soup bowl in front of Chen Kai. Splash. Soup sprayed across his face. The laughter died instantly. Chen Kai jumped up, wiping soup from his face, eyes blazing, about to explode. I didn't give him the chance. I tapped the microphone twice. The sharp feedback screech forced everyone to cover their ears. Silence. If you don't like cliches, I said evenly. Then let's do something more stimulating. I leaned both hands on the podium and scanned the executives like a cold machine. Director Zhao, I heard you went to Europe last month and secured a 300 million yuan deal? Zhao Xingyue froze for half a second, then lifted her chin smugly. President Ning really keeps up with business news. But that's sales territory. You're just finance, worry too much and you'll get wrinkles. Her cronies laughed again. I smiled. Exactly, because I handle finance, I'm curious. Which client required you to swipe the company card for 280.000 yuan at Hermes? With no invoice returned? Her smile froze. And why does the transaction code show a 5-star love hotel in Paris instead of gift purchase? The room exploded. Phones instantly turned toward Zhao Xingyue. Her panicked expression, caught red-handed, was far more entertaining than Peppa Pig ever could be. You're lying, she screamed, pointing at me. I'll sue you. Sue me? I pulled out a recorder and spun it lazily. On the night of the 14th at 9 p.m., you submitted a taxi receipt claiming a ride from the office to Peninsula Hotel for 180 yuan. But here's dashcam audio proving you never went there. You went to Vice President Chen's suburban villa. Chen Kai dropped the tissue in his hand. We'd been married 7 years. For 3 of them, I rose from junior accountant alongside him to vice president. To avoid rumors, I voluntarily transferred to internal audit, the most exhausting, most hated department. He told me the company was preparing for IPO. I was family. I had to guard the final gate. I believed him. I worked day and night, plugging financial holes, while I held the kingdom together. He bought luxury bags for someone else. That suburban villa was supposed to be our retirement home. Only 2 people had keys. Last week, while cleaning, I found an earring wedged into the sofa. I recognized it instantly. Zhao Xingyue had shown it off on social media, a limited edition. Only 1 pair in the entire city. Chen Kai lunged toward her, forcing her back into her seat, then turned and roared at me. Ning Meng, are you drunk? This is a celebration banquet. Executives are here. I stared straight at him. I haven't even finished my drink. How could I be drunk? Security, he shouted. Get this crazy woman off the stage. No one moved. Chairman Wang sat at the center table, wine glass in hand, watching silently. Without his signal, no one dared. When shouting failed, Chen Kai rolled up his sleeves and charged the stage. Get down here, now. The refined executive was gone. What charged toward me was a rabid animal. Chen Kai, I said coldly. Touch me even once, and I'll release proof of your 5 million yuan derivatives embezzlement to the entire company. He froze mid-step. His face drained white. What did you say? 5 million. I raised 5 fingers. That's just last quarter. This month, to cover the whole, you approved 3 unqualified vendors Zhao recommended. How much kickback? 1 million? 2? His throat bobbed violently. Ning Meng, let's talk at home. He pleaded softly. Please, give me some dignity. Dignity? I laughed coldly. When you replaced my speech with children's lyrics, did you think about my dignity? He stammered. It was a misunderstanding. Bullshit. I slammed the recorder onto the floor. Inside weren't just recordings of Zhao pretending to work overtime, but their entire plan. How to kick me out. How to pin the 5 million hole on me. Chen Kai, I said calmly. I'm done pretending. Tonight, I'm using the 2 of you as sacrifice. The hall fell dead silent. Those who'd laughed earlier shrank back. They weren't afraid of me. They were afraid of what I knew. I'd audited this company for 3 years. Every dollar in and out, I knew it. I stayed silent out of respect. But tonight? Anyone who wanted dignity could keep it themselves. After my daughter was born, people kept telling me how lucky I was. You have a healthy baby. You have a husband. You have a family around you. What they didn't understand was that luck only matters if you're allowed to feel human inside it. I wasn't. The delivery was long, longer than I expected, longer than anyone had prepared me for. By the time they placed my daughter on my chest, my body felt like it had been hollowed out and refilled with pain. I remember staring at her tiny face, her eyes still sealed shut, her skin wrinkled and warm, and thinking, I will protect you, even if it costs me everything. I didn't know then how literal that promise would become. We came home 3 days later. The apartment smelled different with a baby inside. Milk, disinfectant, something faintly metallic, the kind of smell that tells you life has changed permanently. My mother-in-law took over immediately. She rearranged the kitchen, moved things without asking, decided where the baby would sleep, how often she would be fed, when I should rest. She spoke softly, always with a smile. You're weak right now. You don't know yet. Listen to someone who's raised a child. Every sentence sounded reasonable on its own. That was the problem. The first night home, my daughter cried for nearly an hour. I held her, rocking gently, humming without realizing I was doing it. My stitches burned, my arms shook. She's hungry, my mother-in-law said from the doorway. I just fed her, I replied quietly. That wasn't enough. She reached for my daughter. I hesitated. Just a fraction of a second. Her face changed. Not dramatically, not angrily. Just enough. A thin smile tightened. You're already tired. Let me. I let go. That moment stayed with me longer than I expected. After that, it became a pattern. Whenever my daughter cried, my mother-in-law appeared. Whenever I tried to do something my way, there was a correction. Hold her like this. Not like that. She'll get spoiled. You're making her dependent. I was barely sleeping. My body was still healing. My hormones were all over the place. And yet, somehow, I was expected to be calm, grateful, understanding, strong. One afternoon, about 2 weeks after the birth, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried silently. Not loudly, not dramatically. Just enough to let the pressure leak out. I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. Dark circles, pale skin, hair pulled back in a careless knot. I looked erased. When I came out, my mother-in-law glanced at my face. Why are your eyes red? I'm just tired, I said. She nodded, satisfied. Being a mother is like that. You'll get used to it. My husband, Jianwen, noticed none of this. Or maybe he noticed and chose not to see. When I tried to talk to him, he always responded the same way. Just let her help. She means well. Don't make things complicated. One night, after my mother-in-law criticized me for feeding the baby too often, I finally snapped. I need space, I said to him in the bedroom, my voice shaking. I feel like I don't exist in my own house. He sighed, not angrily, just tired. You're overthinking. That sentence did something to me. It made me doubt my own reality. I stopped arguing after that. Not because things got better, but because I learned arguing only made me look unstable. And instability, in that house, was treated like a flaw. About a month after the birth, my mother-in-law started making comments about the baby's gender. At first, they were subtle. Well, at least she's healthy. Girls are easier when they're young. Next time, maybe. She never finished that sentence. She didn't need to. The meaning hung in the air like humidity. One evening, while I was breastfeeding, she sat across from me and said casually, "In our family, men carry the line." I froze. "I'm just saying," she continued, stirring her tea, "a daughter is fine, but a son, that's different." I looked down at my daughter. Her tiny hand was wrapped around my finger. I felt something shift inside my chest. Something hardening. Later that night, I told Jianwen what she had said. He frowned slightly. She didn't mean anything bad. She implied our daughter isn't enough. She didn't say that directly. I stared at him. That's when I realized something important. He believed that as long as harm wasn't spoken clearly, it didn't exist. My body healed faster than my mind. Physically, I was able to move again, walk again, function. Mentally, I was unraveling. I started forgetting things. I lost track of time. Sometimes, I'd sit on the couch holding my daughter and feel completely detached. Like I was watching someone else's life. I knew this feeling had a name. Postpartum depression. But no one in that house believed in names like that. When I tried to explain how overwhelmed I felt, my mother-in-law laughed softly. When I had children, no one cared about my feelings. She said it like a badge of honor. Suffering, to her, was proof of worth. Things escalated slowly. So slowly that I didn't notice until I was already drowning. She started checking my phone. Just to see pictures of the baby, she said. She started criticizing my spending. "You don't need that. That's unnecessary. You should save." She commented on my job. "Why go back so soon? Your child needs you. Money isn't everything." I reminded her gently that I owned the apartment. That I paid most of the bills. Her smile never faded. "That's because you're lucky." Lucky. The turning point didn't come with a scream. It came with a dinner. A simple one. She invited a distant relative, Aunt Zhang, to eat with us. "She's just visiting," my mother-in-law said. "It's polite." I agreed. I didn't know then that politeness was about to become a weapon. At the restaurant, my mother-in-law suddenly started crying. Loudly. In public. She talked about how lonely she was. How unappreciated. How her son had changed. How her daughter-in-law was cold and calculating. People stared. I sat frozen. Jianwen stared at the table. Aunt Zhang looked between us. Confused. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. On the way home, no one spoke. That silence felt heavier than shouting. That night, Aunt Zhang pulled me aside. She didn't accuse. She didn't comfort excessively. She just said, "If you don't become strong, they will keep pushing." It wasn't said with anger. It was said like a fact. That sentence followed me into my sleep. And when I woke up the next morning, something inside me had changed. Not enough to act, but enough to start seeing clearly. I didn't wake up angry. That's the part people don't understand. There was no dramatic realization. No screaming match. No moment where I suddenly became strong. I woke up tired. The kind of tired that settles into your bones and makes even breathing feel like work. My daughter was 6 weeks old. I hadn't slept more than 2 hours at a time since she was born. My body still hurt. My mind felt foggy. And yet, every morning, I was expected to function as if nothing had changed. As if becoming a mother hadn't cracked me open and rearranged everything inside me. That morning, my mother-in-law criticized how I sterilized the bottles. "You're too slow," she said, clicking her tongue. "When I had a newborn, I did all this myself." I nodded. Later, she criticized how I held my daughter. "You'll spoil her like that. She'll become dependent." I said nothing. At lunch, she commented on my weight. "You still haven't lost it? Women these days are too indulgent." I stared at my plate. And my husband? He sat there. Quiet. Chewing. Pretending not to hear. That was when something inside me shifted. Not explosively. Just quietly. That afternoon, I locked myself in the bathroom and cried for exactly 5 minutes. I set a timer. When it went off, I washed my face, looked at my reflection, and barely recognized myself. I looked older. Smaller. Like someone who had learned to take up less space. I thought about my daughter. I imagined her growing up watching me shrink. Watching me apologize for existing. Watching me accept disrespect as normal. Watching silence pass for peace. And for the first time since giving birth, I felt something stronger than exhaustion. Fear. Fear of becoming an example I didn't want her to follow. The breaking point didn't come from my mother-in-law. It came from a relative I barely knew. She arrived one evening unannounced. My husband's aunt, someone who lived hours away and just happened to be in the city. My mother-in-law insisted we go out for dinner together. I didn't want to. I was tired. I was sore. I wanted to stay home with my baby. But I went. Because saying no had never been an option. At the restaurant, my mother-in-law cried. Right there. At the table. She talked about how lonely she felt. How her son had changed. How I had taken him away. She said I was cold. Calculating. Ungrateful. She said she had never felt welcome in my home. People stared. My husband stared at the table. No one defended me. I sat there, holding my daughter, feeling my chest tighten. That was when I understood something with absolute clarity. This wasn't about misunderstanding. This wasn't about generational differences. This wasn't about culture. This was about control. And silence was how they kept it. After dinner, her aunt gently patted my back and whispered, "If you don't stand up for yourself now, they'll never stop." I didn't respond. But something ignited. That night, after everyone went to bed, I opened my laptop. I looked at the deed to my apartment. My name. Only my name. I reviewed bank statements. Savings. Records. I wasn't trapped. I had just been taught to behave like I was. The next evening, my mother-in-law brought up a second child. Not directly. She talked about legacy. About security. About how anything could happen to my daughter. I looked at her and said calmly, "Are you saying you're disappointed she's a girl?" The room went silent. She laughed awkwardly. "You're too sensitive." But then she said it. "What's the point of everything you have if you can't give the family a son?" That was it. I felt no rage. No shaking. No tears. Just certainty. I stood up and said, "My daughter will take my last name." They laughed. I continued, "This apartment belongs to me. I bought it before marriage. You will be moving out." They thought I was bluffing. Until I wasn't. My mother-in-law screamed. Called relatives. Threatened lawsuits. Accused me of destroying the family. My husband followed me into the bedroom and begged. "Please," he said. "She's old, just endure it." I looked at him and asked one question. "Have you ever chosen me?" He didn't answer. That was my answer. Later that night, I showed him the security footage. The clips I never wanted to watch again. His father lingering in the hallway. Watching. Hovering. Moments that made my skin crawl but that I had dismissed as paranoia. My husband went pale. He said he would cut them off. That he would protect me now. But it was too late. Protection after damage isn't protection. It's guilt management. I filed for divorce the next week. The house grew quiet. Too quiet. But for the first time, it didn't feel suffocating. It felt honest. There are moments in life when something inside you goes quiet. Not calm. Not peaceful. Just final. That moment didn't come with screaming or tears. It arrived the night I realized I no longer felt afraid of losing my marriage. I was afraid of staying in it. The dinner table was set like any other night. Rice cooling in bowls. Soup untouched. My daughter asleep in the bedroom, breathing softly through the baby monitor. My mother-in-law cleared her throat. She had a way of doing that when she wanted attention, not loud. Not aggressive, just enough to make the room lean toward her. She started talking about the future. About how one child was too risky. About how accidents happen. About how a family needs insurance. She never said the word son. She didn't have to. Every sentence carried it. I listened quietly. Then I asked, very calmly, "Are you hoping something happens to my daughter?" The room froze. My mother-in-law laughed first. A short, offended laugh. She said I was dramatic. That I was twisting her words. That I was too sensitive since giving birth. Then she said it. Women who can't give birth to sons shouldn't act so proud. I turned to my husband. He was staring at the table. I waited. He shifted in his chair. Uncomfortable, not angry, not protective. Just embarrassed. Not for me. For the volume of the conversation. That was when I knew. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't something that could be fixed with boundaries or time. This was who he was when it mattered. I stood up. My voice didn't shake. "This house belongs to me," I said. "I bought it before we married. It's in my name." They both looked at me like I'd spoken another language. "My daughter will take my last name," I continued. "And tonight, you're leaving." No one moved. So I repeated it. Slower. Clearer. My mother-in-law exploded. She screamed. She called relatives. She threatened lawsuits and curses and shame. My husband finally stood, not to protect me. To calm her. I went into the bedroom and locked the door. That night, I slept beside my daughter and felt something unfamiliar. Relief. The next morning, I filed for divorce. The paperwork felt heavier than it should have, not because I was unsure, but because I wished I'd done it sooner. That night, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My mother-in-law called until her voice went hoarse. My husband came home drunk, crying, apologizing, begging. He said he loved me. That he didn't want to lose our family. That he would handle his parents. I asked him one question. "Have you ever chosen me when it was hard?" He couldn't answer. I showed him the security footage. The times his father lingered too long near the bedroom. The moments I felt watched but told myself I was imagining it. My husband went silent. Then he said, "I won't let them come anymore." I shook my head. "That's not enough," I said. "You didn't fail to protect me once. You failed every day." The divorce was finalized faster than anyone expected. He didn't fight custody. He didn't fight the apartment. His family dragged my name through every group chat they had. So I sent the videos. Then I left the groups. After that, the calls stopped. Silence, the good kind. Life didn't magically become easy. I was a single mother. I was tired. Some nights, I cried quietly in the kitchen after my daughter fell asleep. But I could breathe. No one watched how I walked. No one corrected how I fed my child. No one told me my worth depended on my womb. My daughter laughs freely now. She sleeps peacefully. She grows up in a home where no one is afraid to speak. I don't regret enduring what I did. But I am proud of myself for leaving. Because sometimes, walking away isn't failure. It's survival. And sometimes, the bravest thing a woman can do is choose silence over abuse. And then walk out of it forever.